Hello, good evening, and welcome to Vapor Trails TV. My name's Dave. And had you been watching almost exactly 4 years ago, it was actually the 13th of February 2011, that was the very first episode of Dave's Tacklebox. And as you can see, I look a lot younger and a lot sort of just better in most ways than I did then. I was quite a lot smaller as well, I noticed, which is kind of disturbing in such a short period of time. But 4 years. Yesterday, technically, the 7th. No, was it the 7th or the 6th of February? No, I've blown it now. I think it was actually the 6th of February, 2011, the very first episode of any Vapor Trails TV programme went out live. And what you just saw was the opening shot of Dave's Tacklebox. So we're four. Happy birthday to us. And I think you'll agree, having looked at the quality and everything of what you just saw there, things have moved along quite a bit. So the actual very first show that went out on the 6th or the 7th or whatever it was, and somebody is going to prompt me in the backroom Skype chat any second now to tell me whether it was the 6th or the 7th, because I've forgotten. The very first show was actually presented by Andy Sutton, and in this show I've actually managed to grab a review that was done live by myself, Dave Dawn and Andy Sutton, of a thing called The Fog. I'll explain more when we get there, but just a little 10-minute meander down memory lane. The actual opening sequence from the very first show, I'll play to you for you in a second, and just to embarrass Andy Sutton more than anything, you'll see why. If you were there, you might remember this fondly or with horror. I can't really say, but it does seem like a long time ago now. But I'll play that in. Later on in the show, though, I want to look at some stories that have been doing the rounds over the last couple of weeks. There was a thing published by the Health and Safety Executive in England, which I tried to cover last week, but we ran out of time, so I'm definitely going to have a look at that. Just a quick look. I also want to look at some of the responses to the now infamous mice study, which was the study that a number of newspapers and media outlets, both in the US and the UK, used to produce headlines like e-cigarettes are more dangerous than traditional tobacco cigarettes. We all saw them. They made all our blood boil. I tell you what, the bloody press are more dangerous than tobacco cigarettes half the time. But we know that they've been debunked, and I just want to look at some of the responses to those ridiculous scare tactic headlines that were published. And I've got other bits and bobs as we go away. Obviously, we're running this competition for the V-Spark from Sparks e-cigs, so I'll give you a little reminder on how you can enter that. And throughout the show, if you would like a Twitter message, if you want to tweet the show, just include hashtag VTTV in your tweet, and I should pick it up. And if I want it, I can select it and it'll be displayed on the screen. So if you've got any feedback for me, or you just want to say hello to the world, preferably something to do with e-cigs would be good though, or the show, then we can put that up, as Leanna Lawless has already done, inviting people to join us live. So I'm going to play my titles, but just before that, just part of this little nostalgic look back to 2011, I'm just going to show you the opening sequence, just a minute or so, of the very first VTTV live show, which was the Smoke to Vape show, and this went out on the 5th. Apparently it was the 5th. I thought it was the 6th. I'm going to check that while this is playing. this is the opening sequence to the very first VTTV episode, and I think you'll agree that we've come along a little bit since then.
Well, there we go. Welcome to the very first show. We've got a very exciting show for you. We're bringing you lots of devices. Black. I think we're experiencing technical difficulties on our first transmission. Yes, we're experiencing technical difficulties. Fantastic. Okay, let's try again. I'm going to stop broadcasting. Let's start again. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Is it still broadcasting black? We're back on. I think we're back on. Everybody needs to refresh the browser or something like that. But, you know, it's the first show. Please pardon the technical difficulties. There's bound to be a few gremlins on the first go. But I'm just confirming that we're back on air. We are confirming that we're back on air. We're back on air. Okay, I'm going to run this like we're back on air. Okay, so yes, welcome to the show. We've got lots going on. If anybody can see me, the beauty of live TV. Right, on today's show,
Of course, we don't have any technical problems like that anymore, do we? You know, everything just runs on rails now. To be fair, we've got slightly better technology now. Not least of all, the picture isn't just in the middle of the screen on a dodgy webcam. But I'm going to show you some more of that stuff shortly. This review that the three of us did. The reason I'm kind of, my gaze is over there is there's an argument going on Skype in the background here about the date of the first show. But I'm pretty sure I'll stick a fiver down. It was Sunday the 6th of February. Meaning that Friday was our fourth birthday. But that yeah, I'll run my titles. Here we go. I do love doing this stuff. Fuzzy Ann, I know it said the date on the video that I just played, but only because I typed that in earlier. That doesn't make it right. I just had visions of people tuning in halfway through and thinking, am I in the right place? So I put the little date strap on there. Yeah. But yeah, so just because it said the 6th doesn't mean it's right. That's just what I thought earlier. But anyway, I think we should lead straight into that. When VTTV started, there was a huge, certainly among the VTTV team, and I think across the vaping community, there was a quest underway. All we had in terms of juice delivery systems up until towards the end of 2010, the beginning of 2011, were your sort of wool, polyester filled cartomizers, you know, the old Bogue cartomizer type things. There was I had a thing called the Vape Mate, made by Super T. You might remember we looked at a few weeks ago. We're actually getting out of the e-cig business now, which was like a thing that fitted on top of a 510 or a 901 atomizer. With a bottle, you had a juice bottle that you screwed in the side, and you could squeeze the bottle to deliver juice. There was no such thing as a juice feed system, certainly not in the mass-produced e-cig stuff. So we just everybody was on this quest for something that bigger than the old-fashioned cartridges that went on top of your 901 or 510 atomizer. Everybody was looking for something that would hold a couple of mil of juice if they could get it. And just before the bit that I'm going to show you in the first show, we'd actually started by looking at the Tornado T. The Tornado being Totally Wicked's branding for an ego, and their first tank system. And during that first show, Dave announced, hey, this isn't on the market yet, but there's going to be a low resistance version, which I think was about 1.7 ohms, if I remember rightly. But so just setting the scene for a bit, you know, there were no proper juice feed systems. The GGTS hadn't got its juice feeder or anything out yet for a couple of months after this, and we'd all picked up this thing that we'd seen on the forums and ordered from a place called Fun Store, which is a Greek website, and it's called the Fog, and I actually still have it here, and I know that I showed this just like this a couple of months ago now on this show, I think, and I said one day I might review this again and compare it, but that's basically it. And the idea was you put a 901 atomizer inside it, and it would hold, they reckoned, 2 mil of juice, and you've got a juice feed system. So that is possibly one of the first proper juice feed systems that were around. And myself, Dave Dawn and Andy Sutton got hold of these and reviewed them in episode number 1 of Vapor Trials TV, and I thought it's worth just looking back just to see how much things have changed. So here you go. I've stripped this bit out of the first episode. See what you think.
I do think so. I know you've been using the tank, but you've also been using, have you not, another device, Andrew?
I have. I think we all have, and it's the is it this lovely device?
Have we all been using it?
Is it the Fog from funstore.gr? Perhaps it is. And personally, it take, as standard, it takes a 901. It's supposed to hold 2 point something worth of juice, and I had very, very mixed results with it on the standard 901. I wanted to love it. I really, really wanted to love it, because on the, you know, it's a battery we all like, and you know, if it can get you through a day, great. The main advance that I've made, it's empty at the moment, but I will attempt to fill it while these two guys talk about their experiences. I got a Twitter from Lou, and he told me to whack a 901 to 510 adapter on it, and I stuck a 510 on it, and it has transformed the way this thing works for me, at least. What have you guys experienced with the Fog? Go to the Happy Vapor first.
Well, as you well know, and has been well documented by now, because I've told anybody that will listen, I'm not wholly impressed with it at all.
Sure.
It just basically doesn't hold enough juice to make it worth the hassle of refilling it. I know you've had much better results than I have, Andy, but I can't get half an hour out of the darn thing.
Really? What? It just keeps on hitting dry spots?
It just dries up, tastes burnt, tastes bad.
Sure.
Without actually dissecting the thing, the construction means that the atomizer, if you use the recommended 901, comes to about that far up the device.
Yes.
The juice you can get to about there, and that seems to be about a mil.
Yeah.
Once it gets down to that level, it just doesn't wick at all, and I gave up with it several weeks ago, to be honest.
Sure. I mean, I'm just filling mine up now, and it says to use the little rubber bungy thing when you fill them up. But I've just filled mine up, and I've just plonked it into the lid of the juice bottle, which sort of stems the flow until you can get the top cap on and then tighten up the mouthpiece. So that is filled up to the threads, and then if I take that out, you will see that it will drip. It seems like it's emptying out all the juice, but it does do 5 or I don't know, 10 large drips, and then it's just a case of touching it on the thing and then getting some tissue and doing that. One little tiny tip is that this little sleeve thing that allows it to attach to the battery, if you put it hold down, you will get absolutely no airflow. So the holes need to be I've lost the holes completely now. Yeah. So that I'm always losing the holes.
Okay.
So yeah.
One thing to admit to.
Flashbacks to
Before
my wedding
the
night.
watershed as well.
Well, we all should be over 18 because of the.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that is now on there.
Okay.
And I'll cover the holes, give it a little suck some juice into the atty. And this is a 510 standard resistance.
He's sucking. He's still sucking.
Not bad for
He's
first
tight.
one. Not bad for first one, but it does pick up. It does pick up. Flavor's nice. But the problem with this device is the fact that we've got the Happy Vapor here, who's had exactly the same device, but had completely different reaction to it. So that's what is your reaction to it, Dave, the Hi-Fi Stud Bean?
When first it came in with an East Mall low resistance 901 in,
Yeah.
it did the job quite nicely, I have to say. Kept the flavour there. Draw was about as it should have been, didn't leak, didn't have any of those problems in any way, shape or form. Tried the Cisco on it, and oh dear God, yes,
Didn't
that
work.
was a comedy. Oh, was never going to work. Even once I'd got the leakage problems sorted out,
Sure.
and my thanks to Glenn Romastino for that, for pointing out what was happening, and I managed to get that sorted out with the little adjusty screwy in centre pole bit.
Yeah.
We got that sorted. That was okay, but that just wouldn't worth a damn. And I would think the experience I was getting with the Cisco low resistance 901 was what Dave's been getting all the time. And then at the same time as you got the tweet from Lou about the 501, me being the nosy little beggar that I am, I saw that and thought, ooh,
Well, I retweeted.
you did.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
And so I did it. I've been and went and gone and done it, so I have. And whereas I never had any leakage problems before, I never had until I laid the bloody thing on its side. When I went to get it out of the drawer just earlier there, it was covered. But it's working a damn sight better with the 510 than it was with the 901. It seems to be using all of the juice, because the juice seems to be, well, it's going in at the bottom of the atomizer.
Sure.
But that said, as you've just amply demonstrated, it's such a fart to fill.
Yeah, completely.
Which for me, it's a fart to fill for, it's never going to be more than an hour and a half. And that's when I'm busy and I haven't got time to pick something up.
Yes.
And quite honestly, I can't really be doing with that. It's not as though they're £1.70 each and you can carry 10 of them in your pocket. You can't. So as an introduction, as a proof of concept of how a tank, as opposed to a tank miser, can work, I think, yes, the question now is, having had this thing for 6 weeks, would I buy another one? And I think, unfortunately, the answer for me would have to be no. I don't think I would. I know You know, they're working for some people, and it did work for me, but the non-optional faff is such that it's nice, but it's
exactly. It's a fantastic. I mean, it's a good concept if it works, but sadly, so many people have had so many mixed reaction to it that it's so dependent on finding that sweet spot of an atomizer that happens. There seems to be no rhyme or reason to it. There seems to be, it depends on battery charge or whatever. And I think I've just been lucky. But what would I bring? Is this my device that I would trust to bring to work with me for? If it stops working, I'm then stuck. So therefore, I won't take this to work with me. I will at the moment turn to the Integrity. And if I've got this in my bag, I know I can pick it up and it's going to vape well. This, you could pick it up and it's having a temperamental day and it's dumped all the juice out into your bag. So that's pretty much where I'm at with it. But in terms of like the collector, it's a good device to have on your shelf. It looks nice, apart from looking a bit like a snooker cue. Yeah.
Just
so
thank God it's not pink.
Well, exactly. That would just yeah. I mean, some people might like them in pink, but I do like silver and black. That works quite nicely, and I don't have a silver battery. That would look particularly special. But all looks aside, I'm more impressed now, but only because of a modification that somebody on Twitter pointed out to me, and that's not really the ideal solution to getting a device working. In my opinion.
Can I just make a quick
comment?
Yeah. It's a shame that Dave's recommended people not to buy these fog things, because this one actually is for sale. Uncontactable, but in a number of ways. And can I just say to Jenny Hug that yes, I do indeed have a man bag. So.
I think I could be safe in saying that all three of us that are on screen now all have man bags.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. You're not a man without a bag.
I refuse to comment on moobs.
Refuse to comment on what?
Moobs.
Moobs?
Yeah. Moobs.
Well,
man boobs.
You see, I mean, Justin Lee Collins wearing a bra, that just did it for me.
Well...
But he saw that.
That's quite enough of that, I think.
I'm having one of them.
The other slight thing is that when you put because it's completely metal, just to try and bring it back onto the they told.
You must be watching Moob TV.
Moob TV. We are the Moobs. Anyway, it's very. Talking of Moobs, it's very top heavy. See what I did there?
Beautiful link.
Yeah.
Wow. How clever is that?
But it's very difficult to stand up.
Like it's bigger than the battery, and that's quite unusual for an atomizer or a starter,
Yeah.
So yes, I would agree.
It's built to last, but unfortunately, it doesn't work very well.
Yeah. That said, I am currently using this thing. So.
Andy, the thing about it is this was licensed from Thanasis, the Golden Greek.
Right.
And it's meant to emulate one of these.
Yes.
Only smaller.
Yes.
And I think that's the theory, that's how you do it properly.
Yes.
Because you just can't get enough juice into that. Now, the fact is, it does take more juice than a tank, a tank emitter. But you can carry 5 or 6 of those and fill them in, 10 seconds?
Seconds.
To get one filled?
Seconds, yes.
But how long did it take you to fill your fog?
At least 20, and now I've got the dilemma of what to do with this cap that's full of juice, because you can't, you then have to take it. So it's just a messy filling routine, and it's a faff. It's not even optional. It's just a faff, really.
That's the non-optional faff quotient is heading into double figures. And
yes,
that's a shame.
It is. It is. Our time is also running into double figures, so I'm going to now smoothly look at my run order. And then see that next up I'm going to say goodbye to you guys for now, but you're going to stay online and we're going to chat with you in a minute. Don't go anywhere, Dave. Don't go anywhere. Don't go.
That's seeing me down the pub.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce you. Say goodbye, fellas.
Goodbye, fellas.
See, they know what they're talking about, and they're comedians as well. It's only live, isn't it? It's only live. It's, you know, once you've done it, it's gone. From one audio nightmare to another. So that's going to conclude the Smoke to Vape show. I'm going to keep all three of us on screen. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching the first show. And yes, in a second, Dave, the hi-fi stud. What is he doing? He's like a mime trapped in a box. That's what he's doing.
He's trapped in the box. He's trapped in the box.
Right. Well, that concludes the first show. That sort of sums it up, really.
I'll see everybody at 8 o'clock.
Brilliant. Oh, he's playing with his camera toys. Anyway, so thank you all very much for watching. Again, another seamless end to the show. And everybody tune in for the Hi-Fi Stud. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon. Cheers.
And yeah, so I chopped a couple of little bits together there. I look back at that, and a lot of the things that I was thinking are kind of echoed by some of the comments in chat about how much things have changed, but the quality of the script not necessarily so. But I tell you what, it was that night we'd been gearing up for like weeks and weeks just to try and get the technology to work, and it was pretty much cutting edge then, I tell you. You know, because I'm not aware of anybody else that was doing that kind of stuff. And Andy and Dave and Kat and myself spent weeks thinking, right, how can we do, you know, using Skype and stuff like that to get it to happen. And it's a miracle it worked at all, looking back. I would hate to have to run a show with that tech again now, because the stuff we've got now makes it so much easier, and the quality is just so much better as well. Well, not necessarily the quality of the content, you know, that I think, you know, we were all terrified, basically, you know. We really wanted it to be good and all the rest of it. And these days we don't care so much. Right, we'll take our first break, and when we come back, I want to look at this health and safety executive thing. So we're going to fast forward back to 2015. But first, sponsor messages. Bye.
Joytech UK are proud sponsors of VapeTrails.tv.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
Vapers, do you love discovering new e-liquids? Tell Dripper the types of flavours you like and they'll send you 5 gourmet juices each month. Experience new and exclusive flavours, all with a money-back guarantee and free delivery anywhere in Europe. Dripper.co.uk.
RY4 Radio.
And welcome back. Right, now, this next thing that I'm going to look at are just popping up tweets, the clean ones. The ones that don't give me a complex, I'll pop those up as they come in. I was going to look at this last week, ran out of time. I just want to give it a quick mention this week. This is a web page. It was something that I became aware of. It's not actually dated, so I don't know how long it's been there, but I became aware of it last week when one of the team made me aware of it. And it's actually a health and safety executive document. It is a web page, but it links off to other sort of resources that you can look up. And it's actually entitled Advice on Smoking at Work. Now, we all know pretty much that smoking at work is pretty much governed by the anti-smoking laws that came in a while back. But it does actually make reference to electronic cigarettes. And I thought it was worth a look because, and I'll tell you where I'm coming from with this, is there's a number of people that I'm aware of who have, working for big companies, the kind of organisations that take their steer from the HSE, who've been they've banned vaping in the workplace. And I don't know, I never thought to check until somebody sort of made me aware of this, but I guess I would have assumed that the health and safety executive were probably anti-vaping in the workplace because of some of the misinformation that public health are throwing around. But actually, it's not quite so. So I just thought this might be interesting for anybody who might be having an argument with their HR department on what is and isn't allowed. So let me just locate the bit I'm looking for. Right. And of course, because it's live, I cannot find the right page now. The right chapter. Smoke-free legislation was introduced in England in 2007, blah, 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 blah. Bear with me, folks. I'm starting to wonder if I'm even on the right page. Now, here we go. I found it. I do apologise for that. Electronic cigarettes at the bottom. The HSE position on electronic cigarettes is they don't have a position on electronic cigarettes. I'll read the little bit out. It says the HSE does not enforce legislation or standards for e-cigarettes. E-cigarettes are not regulated like tobacco products, and there is currently no bespoke regulatory system for e-cigarettes in the UK, but they are captured by general product safety regulatory requirements, which is nice to hear. They're not saying they're not regulated. They're saying what we've always said. They are regulated under general product safety regulations. It says that the HSE's advice is that an employer needs to consider e-cigarettes in the wider context of risk in the workplace. We are aware that some organisations have banned their use, but this is not something HSE has advised on. Employers may want to ask for advice on this from Public Health England. Yeah, well, but this is HSE saying we have not said that people should not vape in the workplace. And I think this is quite significant, actually. They do give a little bit of advice in as much as they say some organisations may find that will you permit or prohibit electronic cigarette use on your premises document useful. It sets out 5 questions to ask yourself before deciding whether to permit or prohibit e-cigarette use on your premises. Now this bit, I reckon this might be relevant to people watching this, because I've heard some stories. If an employer decides to prohibit, in inverted commas, the use of e-cigarettes in the workplace, but allow for vaping breaks or provide areas where employees can use e-cigarettes, the employer needs to ensure that those who use e-cigarettes are not put at risk of harm from second-hand tobacco smoke. So let me spell out what that means. That means they cannot send you to the smoking shelter to vape. So, because I know that some companies are doing that, because I've read about it and I've heard people tell me that. They can't do it. The HSE says you cannot put somebody at risk of second-hand smoking, regardless of whether you think that's a real thing or not. They can't send you to the smoking shelter to vape. Interesting, isn't it? We'll have a very quick look at the document they're referring to with the 5 questions to ask, because this is just kind of interesting. And this document's been around since June 2014, according to what's at the top of it. And it appears to have been issued on behalf of ASH England, ASH Wales, the Trading Standards Institute, the UKCTAS, which is the UK Centre for Tobacco and Alcohol Studies, and the Chartered Institute of Environmental Health. So, some fairly big hitters when it comes to debating the merits of e-cigs. I'll see if I can put a link up for this if you've not seen it, because we haven't got time to go through it all tonight. But it's actually... it's an interesting document. I wouldn't go as far as saying whether it's good or bad, to be honest. But it does actually force employers through a thought process. So if they follow the HSE advice, and which was to read this before you make a decision on allowing people to vape in the workplace, it asks questions like, what are the issues you were trying to deal with? And it gives some suggestions as to things that you might be that might be the issue you're trying to deal with, like projecting a clean and healthy image for your premises, promoting good role models for children, maintaining compliance with smoke-free legislation. And I'm glad they put that in, because then they just shoot it down saying, well, it's not covered by that. So that's one of your possible reasons you can't do it. So in one sense, that's good, because it's saying to you that you can't ban them because the smoke-free legislation, and it's making it very clear that they don't cover e-cigs. And there's more information there. Go to the next section. What do you think you need to control? And I quite like the sort of patronising tone of that. Do you think you need to control lookalikes? Or is it nicotine? Or is it vapour? Is it medicines? It asks the question. It phrases it in terms that say, well, if you're going to ban that, what about other, nicotine delivery mechanisms like NRT? Do you have any concerns about the possibility of harm from NCPs? And it then goes on to give you, it breaks it down into direct harm, indirect harm, and role models. I guess on balance, it's a good document, because question 4, will restricting or prohibiting the use of nicotine-containing products support compliance with smoke-free policies? You see, it kind of demonstrates, if you're an employer and you don't know what to do, this is basically saying, unless you've got a specific reason to do with your business, you probably haven't got a good reason to stop it. It's quite supportive. But I think the HSE part of this is the is the main thing here. There's no HSE directive that says you shouldn't let people vape at their desk or in the shop. And there's definitely something that says you can't send them out to smoke in the smoking shelter with smokers. to vape, should I say, in the smoking shelter with smokers. So that might be useful to some people. It's certainly interesting. I'll see if I can get the link to that document posted around the place if anybody wants to have a look at it in more detail, because they'll have a bit more time than I have tonight. So that's quite interesting. While we've got the web page up on there, I don't actually run a Public Health Figure of the Week award, but if I did, it would go this week to this guy. This guy called Jim McManus, and he is a director of some sort. I'll have a proper look in a minute, for Hertfordshire Public Health. He tweeted the other day, February the 5th, so that was Thursday, I think, was it? Saying councillors approve policy of helping people to give up tobacco using e-cigs, e-cigarettes as part of harm reduction approach. And I did a little bit of digging. I actually tweeted him, and as I said, I love it when common sense prevails over politics. And he favourited that tweet and thanked us all. A few people said, well done, thank you. And he thanked us all. He made comments on Twitter about how pleasant and supportive people have been on Twitter and how much it meant to him. And it ended up with a comment that says, if one Herts citizen is helped by this, it will have been worth the effort. So let's have a little look at what we're talking about. I'll just tell you who Jim is. He's got a website here called jimmcmanus.info. jimmcmanus.info, but I don't think he updates it very often, I'll warn you now. I think his last blog was a couple of years ago or something. But it does tell you a little bit about who he is. He's a Director of Public Health in Hertfordshire, UK, a Chartered Psychologist, Chartered Scientist and Associate Fellow of the British Psychological Society. He's got degrees in psychology and theology. He's also a registered public health professional and Fellow of the Faculty of Public Health of the Royal College of Physicians of the UK. So that sounds like a fairly big hitter to me. And what he's actually done, if I can find the thing, and I've just got a feeling that I haven't actually got the page open anymore. But they've basically given the go-ahead. He organised a vote of councillors, and he's got the go-ahead to... No, I haven't got the web page anymore. See, we don't have technical problems these days. Everything's much better than 2011. But they are now going to recommend e-cigs as part of their smoking cessation sessions and clinics and what have you in Hertfordshire. Yeah, that's voted. They're allowed to offer them. It does say along with other NRT, and that's fine. I think that's good. But I think that's a huge step forward. And the guy's engaged on Twitter and he's absolutely shattered the myth that we're all obsessed, irrational, psychotic people who attack public health figures. So there's a guy, like I say, if I did a Public Health Figure of the Week award, he'd be my man, probably for some weeks to come. So well done to Jim McManus. And again, I'll see if I can pop those links for people who want to have a look in more detail after the show. And I'm looking around for a clock because I've got to be running late. I'm going to move swiftly to the second ad break. That's what I'm going to do. I'll be back straight after this.
LP Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and e-liquids. Proud sponsors of Vaping Entertainment on Vapor Trails TV.
What's in this e-cig cloud? Harmless water vapour, right? Pretty much, yes. Compared to a lit cigarette, it's much safer than smoke. But it contains nicotine, and nicotine on its own isn't toxic and doesn't cause cancer. If you're worried about switching to vapour, here are some facts. No tar, no smoke, no burnt tobacco. Cooking your evening meal produces more toxins than are found in exhaled vapour. Tobacco smoke contains toxins at very high levels, and vapour does not. And that vapour contains 6,000 times less carcinogens than cigarette smoke. Electronic cigarette vapour. There's nothing to be frightened of. The only dangerous electronic cigarette is a banned one.
And welcome back. I got a couple more tweets to put up there. Poor old Ridian, who missed the pre-show and doesn't know what we were all laughing at. So far, revising for health and safety, eh? Fair enough. What are you watching this for? Because you're in chat now. And very kindly, Gordon Allen Beard has put up a link to that document, and we'll get that into the show page later. Don't worry if you want to have a look at the Jim McManus details, and it's worth a look, and it's fantastic news. And I tweeted to the guy, I love it when common sense prevails over politics, and he totally agreed with me and liked that comment. So. Next, I want to give a little reminder. Last week, if you watched Dave's Tacklebox, you saw me review this thing. It is the V-Spark variable voltage kit from sparksecigs.co.uk. And they have put up 5 of these for Vapor Trails TV viewers to win. You have to go to a website, and as soon as Sav sees this, and there's a slight delay, I know, I'm sure she will pop the link into chat. You will also find it embedded in this week and last week's show page and YouTube page if you're watching this on catch up. I've been using it again on and off. I was in Switzerland during the week. I didn't take it with me, but I got back on Thursday and I was using it. And it's hard to comment on because it just does what it should. And there's 5 of them, and you can win it. Free entry competition, courtesy of Sparks e-cigs, sparksecigs.co.uk. Got my teeth back in, and we'll carry on with the show. So, and I can see the links in chat. Thank you, Sav. Itchy ace. Right, now, the mice study. We saw headlines in many of the local papers recently. It was last week, really, wasn't it? Headlines like e-cigarettes may be more dangerous than traditional tobacco cigarettes and other total crap. It didn't take long for this rubbish to be debunked by a number of people, and we're going to have a little look at some of our favourite doctors or scientists and their comments about that and the way they've debunked the report that this was based on, which was basically a study done on mice by exposing them to vapour, and from there they claimed that the formaldehyde was produced and it was doing respiratory damage and all kinds of stuff. I'm going to start though with an article from the New York Times, which has been on the VTTV Facebook page for a couple of days, so apologies if you've already seen it, but I think it actually it sums up quite neatly certainly where I am with some of this stuff. Let's have a look. It's written by a guy called Joe, and I apologise for the pronunciation of his name. It looks like Nocera, I don't know. Nocera. So apologies if I got that wrong, Joe. Under the heading, "Is vaping worse than smoking?" I'm going to read this. He says, "So I suppose you heard about the latest e-cigarette study, the one that said the vapors e-cigarette users inhale contain multiple forms of formaldehyde. It was much in the news last week after its authors, 5 scientists from the Portland State University, published a peer-reviewed letter outlining their findings in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine." He quotes, "Before you vape, high levels of formaldehyde hidden in e-cigs," said the headline at NBC.com. "Can you guess what cancer-causing agent researchers just found in electronic cigarettes?" asked the Motley Fool. "E-cigarettes not safer than ordinary cigarettes," claimed the online publication Tech Times. The New England Journal of Medicine chimed in with a tweet of its own. "Chemical analysis of e-cigs vapor shows high levels of formaldehyde," it read. "Authors project higher cancer risk than smoking." And I'll just break off there. We had the Daily Mirror and a few others, sort of with similarly themed headlines, didn't we, in the UK? He says, "The study focused on a device known as a premium vaporizer." I don't know what one of them is, but that heats a flavoured liquid containing nicotine. The heat causes the liquid to turn into vapour, which the user inhales. Most of these devices also allow the user to control the voltage. These devices have become increasingly popular as a way to ingest nicotine without smoking. And if you're following this on the screen with me, you'll see there's a number of links there. Go to the VTTV, Vapor Trials TV Facebook page, and you'll be able to open this up and click these links to your heart's content. As a way, it says these devices become increasingly popular as a way to ingest nicotine without smoking. In the study, the Portland State scientists ran the device at both a low voltage and a high voltage. At the low voltage, they did not detect formaldehyde, but at the high voltage, they found some. Formaldehyde is, indeed, a known carcinogen, which also exists among hundreds of other toxic chemicals and dozens of cancer-causing agents in combustible cigarettes. The authors concluded that someone who was a heavy user of a vaporizer at the high voltage was 5 to 15 times more likely to get cancer than a long-term smoker, or so they seem to say. There is not much doubt that studies like this have an impact on the public perception of e-cigarettes, even though cigarettes result in 480,000 American deaths each year, and even though it is the tobacco, not the nicotine, that kills them. Many in the public health community treat e-cigarettes every bit as evil. Every dollop of news suggesting that vaping is bad for your health, much of which has been overblown, is irrationally embraced by anti-tobacco activists. One result is that whereas 84% of current smokers thought e-cigarettes were safer than ordinary cigarettes in 2010, that number had dropped to 65% by 2013. Worse, close to a third of the people who had abandoned e-cigarettes and returned to smoking did so because they were worried about the health effects of vaping, according to a study published last year in the journal Nicotine and Tobacco Research. The Portland State study fits right into this dynamic. It is, on the one hand, factually true that vaping at an extremely high voltage will cause formaldehyde-releasing agents to develop. But this conclusion is highly misleading. People don't vape at a high voltage because it causes a horrible taste. Now, I'm just going to break off there and say this guy's not got it quite right, has he? We're going to look at what Konstantinos Farsalinos said in a moment. But he quotes him as saying, "A burning taste that occurs from overheating the liquid," wrote Dr. F. Konstantinos Farsalinos, a Greek scientist and vaping expert, in an email to me. Farsalinos has done human studies of vaping and discovered that above a certain voltage, lower than the high voltage test on the Portland State study, people simply couldn't inhale. The taste was unbearable. Now, he's talking about high voltage. We know that he's talking about dry hits. That's what he's really talking about here. When you've got the voltage too high that your coil goes dry. Dr. Fossilinos is pointing out that you don't keep dragging on a dry atomizer because it's horrible. But let's carry on. He said, indeed, the study actually conveys good news. When used at normal voltage, vaping does not produce formaldehyde. Rather than scaring people about the dangers of vaping and alarming them to the fact, in inverted commas, that vaping raises their cancer risk above that of smoking, we should instead be regulating the voltage and temperature conditions of electronic cigarettes so that the problem of formaldehyde contamination is completely avoided, wrote Michael Siegel, who we also saw on the show last week, a professor of public health at Boston University, on his blog. But given the way the Portland State authors characterised their research, it's no surprise that headline writers took away a different message. When I spoke to David Payton, one of the study's authors, he insisted that the study had been mischaracterised. All it was meant to do, he said, was compare the levels of formaldehyde in e-cigarettes versus cigarettes. It is exceedingly frustrating to me that we are being associated with saying that e-cigarettes are more dangerous than cigarettes, he added. This is a fact, not in evidence. Well, maybe. When I read in the tweet from the New England Journal of Medicine, authors project higher cancer risk than smoking, he sounded horrified. I didn't see the tweet, he said. I regret that. That is not my opinion. There is a lot yet we don't yet know about e-cigarettes, said Payton toward the end of our conversation. He's right about that. E-cigarettes are still so new that they need to be studied carefully, and he and his co-authors are planning further studies. Perhaps the next time they will produce something that doesn't serve mainly as a scare tactic to keep smokers away from e-cigarettes. Now, some of the, the high voltage versus the dry hit thing there, he hasn't got quite right. But the sentiment is there, isn't he? And he's bang on the money with his comment that the people are seizing on alarmist headlines, if you like. But the guy who did that study is saying that was not what they were trying to portray. That's not what they said. And I haven't got too much sympathy with that. I mean, if you publish something like that, where you've used an unrealistic scenario and drawn conclusions from it, then you've got to question the worth of the study and the guy that did it, really. It might not have been his intention, but what did he expect? I mean, for God's sake, come on. Let's have a look at what Dr. F had to say about that, shall we? Let's have a look. So this is from ecigaretteresearch.com. This is Dr. F's rebuttal. And he says, verified, formaldehyde levels found in the New England Journal of Medicine study were associated with dry puff conditions and update. So he's obviously verified this. So he says, as mentioned in my previous comment about the formaldehyde study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, it is very important to identify which atomizer was used and what energy levels, watts, were applied to the atomizer in order to understand whether the findings were associated with overheating. As I calculated, based on the consumption reported by the authors, I considered 3.3 volts as being about 7 watts and 5 volts being about 14 to 16 watts. It seems that I was pretty close. He then goes on to mention pretty much what I've summarised already, and which is basically, if you've got juice on the coil, there ain't going to be any formaldehyde. Now, we knew this already. The only conclusion that you can come to, because it's very easy to say, okay, these reporters, they've grabbed the sensationalist headline and they haven't researched. Well, I'm sorry, I don't think it's actually as simple as that. I think that there is an orchestrated campaign driven by some people whose names we know, i.e. Glantz, right, which is actually selling these messages to the press in such a way. It's propaganda. That's what it is, right? It's prohibitionist, puritanical bollocks is what most of it is. And if I, with Google, can very quickly find proper reasoned evidence that debunks all this stuff that keeps coming out, then as a journalist they should be able to do it too, right? Yeah, it's not my job to get facts right, it's their job to publish facts, not propaganda. That was almost a rant, wasn't it? But it's our 4th birthday, so I'm not going to get too upset tonight. And yet, you are absolutely right. I'm not allowed to swear. But it happened. I would draw your attention to e-cig's blog. We've run out of time here, so I can't go through this tonight. But e-cig.org.uk, the Electronic Cigarette Industry Trade Association. I'll just flash this up very quickly. If you go to their blog, there's a study there by a friend of mine, Tom Pruitt, aka Crossbow. It says, new study in mice shows remarkably little acute toxicity despite major methodology problems. And that's worth a read. And he does then go on to demonstrate why this study is absolute rubbish. The one that we were talking about in the New England Journal of Medicine. I've run out of time. It is time to get off the air. Can I say to everybody, thank you for joining me tonight. I hope you enjoyed our little walk down memory lane. I'll be back at the same time next week. Until then, good night. And thanks for watching.